Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be showing you a great method of painting an orc boy for Warhammer the Old World by Games Workshop. Now these are real classic miniatures, but what makes them tricky to paint is the large smooth muscles that they have, particularly on their arms. So in this video what we're going to be doing is showing you a great way of approaching this so you can get them painted quickly and easily and looking great on the tabletop. So we hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. To paint orcs of this generation, the undercoat colour I like to go for is Zandri dust, or a colour sort of a khaki kind of sandy colour like this, because it's a great starting point for all the colours we're going to be using. Even though the colours are predominantly black, it means it's a really good starting point for the green skin, which is the tricky part about painting these miniatures. That's why I like to go for it, but you could go for a black undercoat if you want to. The choice really is yours. Now what we are going to do is start out by base coating the clothing with black, and for this what we should go for is an off black that we could shade down for a bit of depth later on. So for that reason, the one I picked out is some Death Reaper, and to apply it, go for a rough base coating brush, and that's what I have here from Citadel, an older medium base coat brush here. That's a good size for the sort of area that we're covering. What you need to do is get some of that paint thinned down with a touch of water so it's nice and smooth, and then start blocking in all the clothing on the miniature. Not worrying about any of the detail for the time being except for the skin. Where possible, just take your time to avoid catching it, but if you do get it a little bit, it doesn't matter because we'll clean that up when we start base coating the flesh. Once you've got all the clothing, the next thing to do is to paint the leather details, so things like boots, belts, all that kind of thing. And in this case, what you should go for is a darker brown. So I've picked out some Scorched Earth for this, and to apply it, I've now switched down to a more regular sized brush for a bit more accuracy. This is a size 1 from Artisopus, but really any medium sized brush like this will be absolutely fine. And with it, what we now need to do, just make sure the paint's thinned and ready, and then start going around the miniature looking for any of these sorts of features. So for example, belts such as the one that's visible at the back just here, just want to block that in, and also things like pouches and the boots as well. Once you've picked out all that leather, the next thing to do is to go for the metallics, and here we're going to go for 2 tones, and most of it will be silver. So in this case, we're going for some Surcoat silver, it's like a dark kind of silver here, but then it's a good idea to pick out some brass too. In this case, I'm going to use some Spartan Bronze. And once that's done, what we then need to do is to base coat any wooden details. So we're looking at the haft of his axe here, and in this case, I'm going to go for some Dust Bowl, so a nice sort of neutral brownish colour. But first of all, we need the silver, so I'm using some Surcoat silver here, and I'm applying it once again with that size 1 brush. In this case, it's just a matter of looking for any metal detail and blocking it in at this stage. So for example, on this model here, we've got some armor plating on his chest. So we're looking at these plates just here that we want to block in. Things like the helmet as well, and of course the blades on his weapons. Once you've finished base coating all that silver, it's then time to break up some of the larger areas with a brass or bronze colour. So here I'm using some Spartan Bronze, and what we're looking for is little features on the silver that we can just pick out, such as the rim of the helmet just here, or the grip of the chopper. And then finally, it's time to pick out any wooden details with an appropriate brownish colour. So here I'm using some Dust Bowl, and what I'm looking at is the haft of this chopper just up here. Once you've finished applying those base coats, we can then move on to the next step, which is going to be to get some wash on the miniature to get some shading. And you'll notice that we haven't actually picked out the bone details yet, and that's because they're being undercoated with Zandri dust, which is a perfect starting base coat colour for them, things like the teeth there. So if you do have any other bone details on the miniature, just make sure you pick them out with the base coat right now, because when we put the wash on, what we want to do is put it over all these paints that we've added so far. Now for orcs, what I find is a really good shade to do is to create one that's actually a really dark brown. So in this case, what we're going to do is look to mix a black wash and a brown wash, and the result is that we get a nice oily, grimy feel to it, so it's perfect for orcs. So to do this, you'll need a black and a brown wash, so I'm going to be using some Oblivion black wash and also some Battlemud wash. And to apply it, what I've got is a medium shade brush from Citadel. You can see I've got the 2 colours next to each other on my palette. All I'm going to do is mix these together to get that nice grimy colour. So there we go. Really stir them together really thoroughly until we get to about this sort of tone here. So with that prepared, what we can do now is start painting this over the colours that we've done on the miniature so far. So for example, on the clothing and the armour just here, I'm going to paint it straight over, making sure to work it into all the nooks and crannies as I go along. Now, where possible, try and keep it off the skin, but if you do splash it a little bit, it doesn't really matter too much, but the less you get on there, the easier the base coating of the green is going to be. One thing to bear in mind, though, is that if your orc does have an open mouth, there are some teeth to get, so be sure to get those too. You might want to switch to a smaller brush. The choice is yours, but just be sure to get some of this wash onto those at this stage as well. The wash is now completely dry, and you can see it gives that a really nice grimy appearance to the model, particularly on the silver details. And so with that done, we can now start painting the skin, and this is where it's really going to pay off having that lighter undercoat here, because it means the base coat for the skin is going to take to the model really easily. Now you can go for all sorts of tones of green here, but in this case I want to go for a brighter one. So I'm going to use some goblinoid green as the base coat, but whichever tone you go for, let's go for the same sort of process here, where you're looking to neatly base coat it onto the model. To do so, I'm going for a size 0 brush now, so slightly smaller than that size 1 I was using earlier, but really any small to medium brush will be absolutely fine as long as it holds a good point, because we need a bit of accuracy here. So make sure that paint's thinned down so it flows easily from your brush and gives you that control, and then it's time to start looking for all the skin on your miniature and just blocking it in. And so we're looking for areas like this where we just need to be careful about those teeth down there and also the helmet. So any detail that you've already done so far, just take your time working around those, but otherwise just blocking in the flesh. The base coat's now applied, so it's time to start the shading process, and this is where we're really going to start to work on those muscles and things that appear in the arms, because for the shading here, rather than using a wash straight away, instead what we're going to do is go for a slightly darker tone than what we just applied to the skin. So in this case, that's going to be some orc hide, and to apply it, I'm going to go for a really small brush. I've got my size 00 here, which is a really fine brush. Any smaller brush like this will be absolutely fine for it. What we need to do is just get some of this thin down the palette so it's a little bit runny and a little bit translucent. So I'm just adding water into it and just playing around with it until it's down to about that point just there. You see a little bit see-through. And with this, we now need to start looking for areas that would be in shadow. So when it comes to things like the face, it's quite clear because you have the recesses on it that we can just run this colour into. So areas such as just here on the underside of that lip right there, and the little recess we've got in the middle of the chin just there. As we go further up the face, we've got things like the underside of the cheekbone. So all these areas that would be in shadow, just run some of this colour into those parts to get some shading. Now, on the arms, it's going to be the same sort of process, but you can see with all these smooth muscles, what we're aiming for now is going to be the underside of these shapes. So it's going to be on the underside of this one right here. And on this muscle down here, it's going to be underside around there. So it's all these regions just to introduce a bit of shading to them to start to give them some depth. With that initial soft shading now done, we can push it a little bit further to create a bit more contrast as we then move on to highlighting it by now putting a wash on there. And in this case, what we want is a nice emerald green wash. But if you're going for a darker skin tone, then just be sure to go for a darker green here. But whatever you choose, it just needs to be a green. So I'm going to be using some orc flesh wash for this. And to apply it, go for a small brush. So again, I'm using my size 00. And that's because rather than slathering this all over the skin, I'm just going to introduce it into the deepest recesses. So you don't need loads of it on your brush, but once you've got a little bit there ready, just make sure you twist away the excess so you've got a good point on it, and then it's time to start looking for such recesses, and it's going to be areas such as just beneath the brow of the helmet where we've got the eyes, and you can see there's some deep recesses here where we just want to run that wash into those areas to get even more shading in those parts. Same's true in the nostrils, so just there. We want to make sure we get the inside of the ears too, so around there, and this little recess beneath the lip too, so just running it into that region just there. On the arms, it's once again looking for areas that are going to be darker, so we're looking at in particular areas like the armpits, such as just down here. We just want to get a bit of that darker colour there, and also in between the fingers too. Now that wash is done, you can see we've got a lot of depth on there, but what we need to do is start adding some highlights, so it's time to move into a lighter green. And in this case, I'm using some troll snot green, and to apply it again, I'm going to stick to my small brush, so my size 00 again, because with this, what we now need to do is introduce this lighter colour towards the tops of details where you'd get more light-catching things. So just like we did with the shading, make sure this is nicely thinned down, so it's a little bit translucent, and then we can start applying it to those areas. So for example, on the face, it's going to be parts that stand out, such as the chin down here, where we can just pick out towards the top of it on that little crest just there and just there. Same on features such as the nose that are very sharp ridges that stand out. So just there, this little bump we've got here, the top lip in there. So all these parts that stand out, just pick them out with a little bit of that colour there like that. Now when it comes to the arms, we've got these smoother shapes. So for all these, what we need to do is look for where light would catch at the top of them and just apply a bit of this colour into that region. Now because it's been thinned down, it'll just fade into the surrounding colour. So you can see how to just thinly apply it onto those parts where we need to be a little bit lighter. It just settles in and gives us a smooth highlight on those muscles. And there we are with that done. You can see the skin is standing out really nicely. Now you could leave the flesh here if you wanted to, and in fact units painted up to that point with the skin will look great, but if you want to take it a little bit further you certainly can do so, and this is something I normally reserve just for characters or maybe the front rank of the unit. The choice really is yours, because when it's rank and file, often the back ranks you don't really see much detail on them. But if you do decide you want to do this, what you now can do is add finer highlights by mixing in some flesh tones to it. And so for this I'm using some troll snot green once again, but I'm going to mix it with some elven skin, so like a pale skin tone, and then once that's done just going to add a little bit of that elven skin on its own. But we'll start out with the mix. So this is troll snot green and elven skin, and to do so I'm definitely sticking to my fine brush here because there's only a small amount required for this. What I'm going to do is just mix those two colours next to each other on the palette, and you can see the result is that we get a slightly more fleshy tone of green just there. So that mixed together, thin it down as ever, making sure there's not loads on your brush. And then with this, we're now looking for the most defined features on the flesh. So for example, on the face, that's going to be things such as the top of the nose, where we just want to introduce a little bit of this colour just at the very top right there. We can go for that upper lip, which is standing out nicely. So again, just a few little lines picking out that texture along there. So small details like that. Then when it comes to the arms, again, we're looking for sharper ridges and parts that stand out. So it's going to be things such as the elbow right there. We've also got just a little bit at the top here that's quite defined, quite a sharp bit of the muscle. So we're just going to get parts like that, and a little bit such as just there. And then finally, we can add an extra fine highlight of that flesh colour on its own. So here it's some elven skin, and I'm just looking for a very tiny amount of this on the most prominent parts, just the tip of the nose right there, just a few little dots on the upper lip. And with that, the flesh is now fully highlighted. So what we're now going to do is just take a look at some really small details that are entirely optional. But again, if you're doing a character, you might want to do these. And that's to paint the lower eyelids and also the fingernails. Now, if you want to do this, you can start out with a dark jade green. So I'm going to use some Hydra green for this. And then we need a light jade green for the highlight. So here I'm going to use some ghoul green. But first we'll need the base coat. So it's the dark one, using Hydra green here. And to apply it, again, definitely go for your small brush because you're really going to need it on these details because they are, after all, very small. As ever, just make sure you thin the paint down, but here we're just looking to go slightly further than normal to make it a little bit inky. And with that prepared, then we can start applying it onto these features. So you just need to brace your hands to be as steady as possible and just carefully move in and start picking these features out. So first of all, we're looking at these fingernails, just these ones just up here to make that darker green. And then there's also the lower eyelids too, where we can just brace the model, gently move in and carefully pick these parts out as well. With that base coat done, we can then highlight these features with a small amount of a light jade green. So here I'm using some ghoul green on the fingernails. All you need to do is just a few fine lines just running down each one just to help them stand out. And then when it comes to the little details underneath the eyes, again, it's just going to be a little line just carefully moved in and just applied to this region right here. And there we are, those little details have been added, and we'll come back to do the eyes later on, but before any of that, what we now need to do is just a little bit of kind of layering really, just to brighten up a few features before we highlight the miniature. And here we're looking at some silver, and also the bone details. So for the silver, I'm going to return to the original colour I used here, which was Surcoat Silver, but for the bone, we want a nice sort of medium to light bone here, so I'm going to use some Skeleton Legion. We'll start out with that silver, and to apply it, I'm going to stick to my small brush, that size 00 once again, because whilst I say layering, it's really quite a selective way of doing this, where we're looking to build the impression of some texture and scratches on the choppers. So to do it, you can see I'm just making sure my paint's nicely thinned and under control, and I've got that good point in the brush. And then what I'm going to do is look for the cutting edges of the choppers, such as this one right here, and start to apply onto the actual sharpened parts. We're looking at that region at the top just there by painting lines in the direction of the impact. So kind of working our way down there like that. And what this will do, it will catch the light and give the impression of some scratches on there whilst also making it appear sharper. So it's all the way down here like this. Once you're happy with those scratches there on the blades of the choppers, it's time to move on to the teeth. And here I'm using some Skeleton Legion, so a nice medium bone colour. And it's a very similar technique, except just focused on each tooth, where we want to do some lines coming down from the tip of each one. So just apply it like this to give the impression that these are nice and sharp. And with those details now picked out, we can move on to highlighting the miniature. And when it comes to a rank and file trooper like this, the highlighting is actually completely optional. And in fact, if you had a unit painted up to this point or base, they'll look amazing on the tabletop. But you might want to make them stand out more, or maybe just your characters stand out more. And if you want to do this, then highlighting is a great way to do it. And in the case of this miniature, we should start out with the main colour on the model's clothing, so the main part of it, which in this case was black. So what we need is a grey, first of all, to highlight this. So I'm going to use some rodent grey, which is sort of like a dirtyish kind of grey colour, ideal for the nice sort of leathery, earthy feel that we want from Orcs. And to apply it, I'm going for my small brush once again. So back to that size 00. And with this, we just need to pick out the textures that stand out on the clothing. So we can get creases and things like that. So for example, if we take a look at the back of the miniature just here, you can see we've got all these creases around here. What we want to do is look for the peaks of them and pick them out. Now, sometimes you'll be able to use the side of your brush, such as the edge of his jacket right there, but you won't always be able to do that because it won't really stand out enough for it. So in these cases, just use the tip of your brush, look for the top of that crease and just do a downward motion like this, just following the top of them there like that. Same is going to be true on this central ridge that we've got, I just want to pick out. And also we've got the hem of his jacket down here. Again, we can use the side of the brush in this case, just following it all the way around. With that done, you can see now the details of his clothing are standing out much better, so what we can do is take it a little bit further as it is a major colour on the miniature with a final highlight, just a final one here to pick out more details. And in this case, we need a light grey. So now I'm going to use some Carcharodon grey, and to apply it, I am going to stay with my really small brush, because with this, we just want to pick out just a few select features. Basically, anything that stands out more, very much like what we did with the skin earlier on. So, just like with that skin, make sure your paint's thinned down and ready, just a little bit translucent, and just make sure to bring the bristles to a nice point. Then we can start looking for such features. And it's going to be things such as the knees, where we've got one just here. I'm just going to add a little bit of this colour just in the central part of that previous highlight that we did, just there like that. We can also do the top of the jacket just along here on top of the arms where the light would catch. So it's all areas like this, just gently flicked on, just to help those parts pop a little bit more. And with that, the black clothing is now complete, so it's time to highlight those other smaller details that appear on there, and we'll start out with that leather, for which we want a lighter brown. So in this case, I'm going to use some Ancient Forest. Once that's completed, we can then highlight all the metallics, and for this, I'm going to go for a bright silver. So I'm going to use some Mithril Blade, and then once that's done, we can highlight all the bones, so there's teeth, and in this case, we want a light bone colour, so I'm going to use some Vampire Fang. Finally, it's going to be time to paint the eyes, and this will be entirely optional, but if you do want to do it, you want a bright red. So here I'm going to use some Demon Red. But first of all, what we should do is highlight the leather. So I'm using some Ancient Forest for this, applied once again with my small brush. So using that size 00 once more. And with this now, with these leather straps and things, we're looking for the edges and corners and parts that stand out. So if we take a look around the back, you can see we've got a belt just there. So what we need to do is just make sure we're really nice and comfortable. Carefully go in with the tip of the brush, just pick out the outline of it. So it's going to be a line just running around that side there and then along here like this. The same is going to be true for all the other leather details that we've got in brown. So for example, this pouch, looking for edges and ridges, and we just want to pick them out. Next up, it's time to highlight the metal with a bright silver. So here I'm using some Mithril Blade, and with this colour, it's a matter of going around all the edges that you can find on the silver details, such as just here, and the brass ones too. So we just want to fine highlight on these features too, following around these edges. Now in addition, you can use this once again on the blades of the choppers to really build up that texture by just flicking a few lines down here, but also this time doing the whole of the outer edge as well. We're now ready to add a highlight onto the bone details. So in this example here, we're looking at his teeth, and here you need a pale bone colour. So I'm using some Vampire Fang, and all we need to do is add a few lines towards the tip of each tooth. So just along there, for example, there like that. On this one, it's going to be on this point down here. Now in addition with this colour, we can use it as a very light highlight on the wooden parts. And to do this, just remove the excess paint off on your brush. So I'm just wiping it away there on my thumb. And then with the side of the brush, just skim a little bit along here just to pick out some of that wooden texture. And then finally, all we need to do is to paint in the beady little eyes of the bright red. So here I'm using some Demon Red, and all you're going to do with your fine brush is just make sure your hands are nice and steady, carefully go in along the length of the eye like this, and just dot a bit of that colour into the little beady eye right there to finish off the miniature. Now with this done, all you need to do is the base, and as ever, the base is entirely your choice what scheme you go for, but in this case, I'm going to go for a grassland base. And with the base now fully painted, this Orc boy is complete and ready to join the Waaagh and do battle in the old world. So when it comes to painting Orc boys like this, the real challenge is painting those smooth highlights and shadows that appear on the arms in particular with all those muscles. So to help out with this, what I recommend you do is choose a lighter undercoat like Zandri Dust, because even though a lot of the colours on the miniature are quite dark, it means that when you come to painting that skin, you've got a really easy starting point in getting that initial green on there. And from this point on, you can just add some highlights and some shadows by using the lighter and darker tones of your mid-tone. This way it's very easy to get those smooth highlights and those soft shadows. So have fun painting your orcs, and we'll see you again very soon.